The snow was still fresh on the lawns of Boulder, Colorado, that winter morning after Christmas in 1996. Icicles hung from rooftops, glistening in the weak sunlight, while the grand houses of the city's wealthier neighborhoods stood silent and still. Inside one of those homes, however, a storm was about to erupt, one that would shake America for decades to come. Boulder was known for its calm beauty, a city framed by the Rocky Mountains, a place where academics, artists, and families thrived in a progressive bubble of safety and affluence. Crime was a whisper, not a roar. To many, it felt immune to the violence that plagued larger American cities. But behind the polished doors of privilege, darkness was preparing to leave its mark. In the Ramsey household, Christmas had passed with laughter, lights, and presents scattered beneath the tree. For 6-year-old JonBenét, a child beauty queen adored by cameras and loved by her family, life seemed charmed. She had paraded in sequined dresses on glittering stages, crowned with tiaras, flashing the smile that would later haunt the nation. But beneath the glitter, something stirred. A detail so small it might have been ignored at first, the faint sense of unease that lingered as the Ramseys went to bed that Christmas night. Outside, snow muffled sound. Inside, the house with its labyrinth of rooms concealed secrets that only the next morning would reveal. What followed was a discovery so strange, so layered in contradictions, that truth itself would become almost impossible to untangle. A ransom note, a frantic phone call, a child missing, then found, murdered, within the very home from which she was supposedly taken. The cast of this grim drama formed quickly. John Ramsey, the successful businessman and father; Patsy Ramsey, the poised, pageant-perfect mother; Burke, the quiet 9-year-old brother; and JonBenét, the innocent, forever 6 years old. Around them would swirl detectives, neighbors, forensic experts, journalists, and an entire nation transfixed. JonBenét's short life was painted with sparkle and spectacle. From church performances to dazzling pageants, she embodied both innocence and a stage-managed maturity that unsettled some observers. Her beauty pageant photos, heavy makeup, curled hair, rhinestone gowns, would soon be plastered across newspapers, amplifying the strangeness of the crime. She had been seen on Christmas Day at a friend's party, giggling, smiling, full of life. No one imagined that within hours she would become the center of one of America's most infamous unsolved mysteries. The last known peaceful moment for JonBenét was her bedtime. Tucked into the security of her family's home, she should have been safe. But sometime in those silent hours, as the world outside slept under winter skies, everything changed. At dawn, panic shattered the household calm. Patsy Ramsey descended the staircase and found a 3-page ransom note sprawled on the back steps. Addressed to her and John, it demanded $118,000, an oddly specific figure, matching almost exactly John Ramsey's annual Christmas bonus. The note was bizarrely wordy, its phrasing dramatic, even cinematic, claiming to come from a small foreign faction. The Ramseys dialed 911. Police arrived expecting to handle a kidnapping. Yet the strangest detail of all was that JonBenét had never left the house. Hours later, in a hidden basement room, her father would discover her lifeless body, covered with a blanket, a cord around her neck, tape across her mouth. The first witness accounts painted chaos. Officers wandered the home without securing it. Friends and neighbors called for support, entered and exited, contaminating the crime scene. One officer later admitted that critical evidence may have been destroyed in those first hours. Nothing was handled with the precision a case like this demanded. The Boulder community reeled. This was not just a crime, it was a nightmare unfolding in their midst. A child beauty queen slain in her own home. The wealthy Ramseys suddenly under a magnifying glass. Media trucks descended on Boulder like vultures. Headlines screamed of murder, ransom, and betrayal. The country was transfixed by the perfect storm of tragedy, wealth, and unanswered questions. Whispers spread quickly. Some neighbors spoke of seeing unusual activity that night. Others wondered about the peculiar ransom note, far longer and more detailed than any typical demand. How could intruders have entered a home without leaving a trace, only to leave behind such a cryptic message? The early police investigation stumbled from the start. Officers treated the case as a kidnapping for far too long, failing to treat the home as a murder scene. Forensic mistakes piled up, footprints not preserved, fingerprints smudged, potential evidence discarded. The note itself was handled and passed around, further compromising its integrity. False leads soon emerged. A neighbor's account of a strange noise, a possible intruder theory, an unknown man in the area. Each hint seemed promising, only to evaporate under scrutiny. Investigators found themselves drowning in theories without anchors. Conflicting testimonies only deepened the fog. Friends claimed the Ramseys appeared distraught and genuine. Others whispered that their behavior seemed rehearsed. Burke, the young brother, became a figure of curiosity and suspicion in later years, though at the time his role was largely shielded from public view. Forensic analysis painted a grim picture. JonBenét had suffered a head blow, then strangulation. Fibers, DNA traces, and the peculiar knots in the cord provided fragments of a puzzle, but never the full picture. Unknown male DNA was later found on her clothing, yet its source remained maddeningly elusive. Investigators struggled to reconstruct the timeline. Had JonBenét been attacked in her bedroom, taken to the basement? Why the staged ransom note if she was never taken from the house? Hours vanished in uncertainty, leaving more questions than answers. Attention soon turned inward, to the family themselves. The suspects, in the eyes of many, lived under that very roof. Patsy Ramsey, accused by some handwriting experts of penning the ransom note. John Ramsey, whose business success and composure under pressure drew suspicion. And Burke, the quiet child, later accused in whispers of sibling violence covered up by desperate parents. Motives were endlessly speculated. Rage, jealousy, accident, or something darker. Was the ransom note a cover-up for a domestic tragedy? Was it an elaborate attempt to redirect blame outward? Alibis cracked under scrutiny. The Ramseys insisted they had nothing to do with the crime, yet inconsistencies in their accounts fueled public doubt. Every word, every gesture, every public appearance was dissected by television panels and armchair detectives. Unreliable narratives multiplied. Some claimed to know the family's secrets. Others fabricated wild theories. The lines between fact and speculation blurred beyond recognition. Dark secrets surfaced, rumors of abuse, speculation about pressures of pageant life, whispers of hidden dysfunction. Whether true or not, they added to the storm. The Ramseys' private world became public property, dissected in endless loops of talk shows and tabloid covers. The media pressure was relentless. Reporters camped outside the family home. Nightly broadcasts turned the tragedy into entertainment. Public opinion split sharply. Some saw grieving parents, others saw actors hiding guilt. Fear spread in Boulder. If a child could be murdered inside her home, was anyone safe? Parents locked doors more tightly. Children were watched more closely. The illusion of safety had been shattered. Theories spiraled, some plausible. An intruder breaking in through a basement window. Others outrageous, elaborate conspiracies involving local elites, cults, or government cover-ups. The sheer volume of speculation became overwhelming. The investigators themselves came under fire. Boulder police were accused of incompetence, bias, even corruption. Their mishandling of evidence became a textbook example of what not to do in high-profile cases. Dead ends mounted, promising suspects cleared, leads collapsed. Forensic advancements arrived too late, often contaminated by earlier mistakes. Frustration echoed on both sides, law enforcement and the grieving family. A critical break seemed possible when DNA analysis revealed the presence of an unknown male. Hope flickered that technology would unmask the killer. Yet, as the years dragged on, that evidence led nowhere concrete. There were confrontations. Detectives grilled the Ramseys, pressing for confessions they never gave. Journalists ambushed them with questions. Television specials staged their own interrogations. But no moment of collapse ever came. The web of lies, real or imagined, never unraveled completely. Some handwriting experts swore Patsy Ramsey wrote the note. Others dismissed the claim. Each revelation was countered by denial or contradictory evidence. The case became an endless tug-of-war between competing narratives. Shocking revelations surfaced over time. Secret grand juries reportedly voted to indict the parents on charges of child abuse resulting in death, but prosecutors declined, citing insufficient evidence. This revelation, years later, reignited the storm of public outrage. The truth remained obscured. No arrest, no confession, just fragments of evidence pointing in conflicting directions. A ransom note, a basement crime scene, a grieving family under perpetual suspicion. There was no trial, no resolution. The Ramseys maintained their innocence until Patsy's death in 2006, still insisting on their love for JonBenét and their desire for justice. The case lingered, unresolved, as one of the great failures of American justice. JonBenét's legacy became complicated. She became a symbol of innocence lost, of media exploitation, of investigative failure. Her image in glittering gowns haunted a society that could not protect her. Lingering questions gnawed at everyone. Who wrote the ransom note? Why was the demand so specific? How did DNA evidence appear without explanation? Was this truly an intruder, or a crime born within the home? The cultural impact was immense. Books, documentaries, and endless online debates transformed the case into a national obsession. Boulder itself became synonymous with mystery, its quiet streets forever shadowed by the unsolved murder. And as the years turned to decades, the case refused to fade. Each Christmas season, the tragedy returned to headlines, as though the child in pageant dresses still whispered from the past, asking for truth. In the end, the image remains. A 6-year-old girl, frozen in time, smiling from photographs that once brought joy but now carry sorrow. A ransom note filled with lies. A basement room that held the darkest of secrets. The closing thought is haunting. Justice slipped away not because the truth wasn't there, but because it was buried beneath errors, assumptions, and time. JonBenét Ramsey's story is not just a mystery. It is a mirror, reflecting how innocence can be lost, how truth can be obscured, and how, even decades later, the nation still asks the same question. Who killed JonBenét Ramsey?